There you go.
Hello, my name is Luis Gonzalez. I'm a second year microbiology student and I'm undocumented. With the other students and the community that are undocumented, as well as the Latino community, there's a conversation going on about immigrants in the United States with the recent events that the president has undertaken. And the truth of the matter is that removing every undocumented immigrant in the United States would have negative effects on the United States. And this would be done in three ways. Removing every undocumented immigrant would, undergoing these deportation procedures will cost the government billions. The deportations will affect the economy, and these deportations will affect the lives of the United States. Now, the American Action Forum estimates that in the United States currently there are around 11 million undocumented immigrants, and they also estimated that removing these 11 million people would cost around $400 to $600 billion. Now, these costs would be directly in courts, the labor, and the cost of the facilities. And currently, the courts are backed up. There are over 500,000 cases, deportation cases, that still have to go through, and so that just be adding more fuel to the fire in terms of that backlog. And deporting these undocumented immigrants would leave their legal citizen children to fend for themselves, and they would have to be put into foster care. Now, the Center for American Progress states that foster care costs $26,000 per year per child. Now, these millions of children, if they were left without parents, would have to be put into foster care, and that would cost the government billions of dollars. The Pew Research Center estimates that 4.5 million children live with undocumented immigrants, and so those 4.5 million children would have to be put into foster care, and if you factor in the cost of foster care, that would be billions of dollars. Even deporting one or both of their parents would change their lives. In the cost, the immediate cost would be a foster care, of course, and of courts, and also there's a future cost involved with deporting their parents. There would be reduced tax revenue and increased welfare usage from single-parent households, because if you take the main breadwinner of the house away, then the mother or the father would have to take on a second role, which would cause stress within the family, and that's would affect the child, and in the future that would cause them to not reach their potential, because with all that's going on in their home, many of them won't be able to get as far in life as a child with two parents in the household would. The Heritage Foundation estimates that undocumented workers contribute $7 billion a year into Social Security. Now, if you take out every single undocumented immigrant out of the United States, that $7 billion falls to zero. And Social Security, as is very stressed. There are some estimates that it's going to run out soon, and so this would really affect current citizens that live in the United States that depend on Social Security, as well as future. Second, deportations would affect the economy. The American Action Forum estimates that removing every immigrant would remove 6% of the labor force. Now, 6% doesn't seem like much, but with figures from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, that would reduce the gross domestic product by $1.6 trillion, or 8.5%. Now, that's a lot of money that could be used for education, infrastructure, and the medical industry. And currently, immigrant labor is not substitutable with American labor. If you take out an immigrant from their job, working in the fields or in the construction industry, they're getting severely underpaid, which is not right. But they have to undertake that to be able to keep their jobs. And so, if you take that out and you try and give someone to work those hard jobs, they're gonna fight for higher wages, because that'd be the right thing to do. But companies would be ready to reject that. And thirdly, deporting undocumented immigrants, all of them, would affect the lives of U.S. citizens. Children are the future, and society depends on them receiving an education. The Department of Education in the UK ran a study of young people in England and found that young people who experienced family instability were 1/3 less likely to stay in education after 16 years old. Now, like I've said, deporting the parents of a legal child would affect their future, and it will affect the future of the United States in the long run. And this is single mother and single father. The Pew Hispanic Center had a figure that 300,000 U.S.-born children have moved to Mexico with their deported parents since 2005. Now, these children that were brought up in the American education system that have moved to Mexico have their futures limited, because currently in Mexico there isn't enough educational resources to give them the future that they might get in the United States. And so if you take these future citizens, these future citizens that would benefit the United States out of the United States, you impact the good they could have done for the country. And so, in conclusion, removing the undocumented immigrant population would have negative effects on the United States by costing the government billions, by affecting the economy, and by affecting the lives of U.S. citizens. Thank you. If you want, I have this second copy. It just has a little bit of writing on it.
Yeah. Okay, well, the proposition's clearly identified. The contents are previewed, although the phrases that you have in those points are so broad that it's a little uncertain as to how you're going on a couple of them, and two of them sound like they're a little bit repetitive. When you get to the body of the speech, I think it clarifies itself a little bit, but you want to plan on making sure that it's clean from the beginning. I think there's plenty of controversy on this, so that's not really that problematic. When you get to the first supporting point, you need to signpost it more clearly, and then you start an explanation. Sometimes the explanation has some evidence with it, and you kind of let the evidence make the argument for you. Sometimes you have the argument that you're making, and it needs a little bit of evidence. So, for instance, on the second point, when you were talking about the problems that would occur for actually, I guess it was on the first point, there's a whole bunch of a presupposition that kids would end up in foster care. I'm not sure if that's what accounts for that $400 to $600 billion that you were talking about before, if that's all court costs or if it's other assorted displacement costs. Like I said, I think there's an assumption that they'd go into foster care, which is kind of contradictory with the point that you make toward the end of the speech that suggests that a lot of kids go with their parents back to the country that their parents were deported to. So the question then becomes, how is this going to be resolved? What would the process be? And there's not really any explanation of that. So on the first point, let's assume it's this way, because that'll give us a bad situation. And then on the third point, let's assume it's the opposite direction. That'll give us a bad conclusion on this. But if those 2 points are contradictory, it's a little bit confusing, and it doesn't enhance the argument, it detracts from it. I thought you had some good statistical information about the number of immigrants who are undocumented, the estimate of the cost to the economy. You usually provide some sources for that. I think that's pretty reasonable. The argument about the impact to the economic system, it's a little tough when you're having to advocate the big advantage is that we can exploit people, and that's good for the economy. I think that's a tough sell, although you're right. I think there are separate issues. There's a value issue here as well as an economic issue, and the economic issue is a little bit clearer. But when you have to mention it, it does become, I think, a little bit harder of a selling point. All right, let's just stop there. We have a